Start. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Max Ringelheim from Vonvo.com. And thank you, Richie and Mahmoud, for joining me here today on our website on Saturday, December 29th. I want to inform you that this video is being recorded, and once the discussion is over, we will be uploading the video to the internet and posting it to our Vonvo YouTube channel. Do you give us permission to do that?
Sure.
Mahmoud, is that fine with you?
Yes, I do.
Great. And so just the last item that I just want to go over is it's relating to our ground rules and regulations of Vonvo. There's to be no personal attacks, no insulting or racist remarks, no belittling, and we just want to keep the conversation civil and organized and ultimately valuable. Can you guys agree to to all those rules?
No problem at all. Yes, I agree.
Great. Thank you so much.
I agree.
Great. Thank you so much. So just knowing both of those two things, let's go right into the conversation. Richie and Mahmoud, would you like to give, Mahmoud, you could go first. Can you give the people who will be watching this video and the audience a quick background of yourself, where you're from, your occupation, and what exactly you do?
Yes, I'm Mahmoud Shaheen. I'm a Palestinian, but I live in Jordan. I have a Jordanian nationality. Yes.
Great. Richie, how about yourself? Would you like to just tell the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Okay, just before that, can I just ask Mahmoud maybe to speak up a bit, because I can't hear him 100% like I can hear you, Max. I don't know, Mahmoud, if you can speak closer to the computer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm Richie. I live in Milton Keynes in the UK. I'm a company director, and I am very well travelled. I've travelled all over the world, and I lived in Israel for about 10 years. About 10 years ago, I left, but I lived in Israel until then. I've been to Mahmoud's country very many times, and I love the people there, and I like his country very much.
Great, great. So just easing our way into it, guys. How did each of you get so passionate about the Israeli-Palestinian crisis conflict? Was it a particular event that occurred in each of your lives that had you guys get so so passionate about it? Mahmoud, do you want to go first?
Yes, because it's first of all, it's my case. I guess it's a little bit, it's injustice. I guess you know that story, that what happened in the year of 1948 and what happened after, and people's immigration from Palestine or from the areas that Israel on now to the other country, and they can get back to their country.
Right. Richie, how about yourself? How did you get so involved in this conflict?
Well, I guess that it's because I've seen from both sides of the fence. I've lived in Dubai. I lived in Dubai in the past. I worked and lived in Israel for a number of years. And I've travelled to all the Arab countries. So I guess I have I try to keep a balanced view on the events that are happening there. I think the media kind of distorts it very badly. I think mainly against Israel, but also I think against the Palestinians as well. So that's I'm passionately interested in this topic, actually.
Great. That's good to know. Thank you both so much for that. So we'll go right into it. And I mean, just so you guys know, There's going to be a few different topics I'm going to want to try and touch on today, and we'll start with the idea that was discussed last week, but obviously continues to get more and more attention, and it's good to hear everyone else's opinion on it. It's the idea behind Israel being labeled as an apartheid state. Richie, I wanted to ask you first. Do you agree with that labeling? And where do you think it comes from?
Okay, well, this is actually one of the. There are not many things that incense me, but actually, Israel being called an apartheid state to me is an absolute joke because I've lived in South Africa, which was branded an apartheid state. I lived there for 5 years, in fact, in Cape Town, and I've read a lot of about what apartheid is, and I think that Israel is probably one of the least apartheid countries on the planet. I mean, you've only got to ask Arabs, and I have lots of Palestinian friends who live on the West Bank, a huge number, and they have the same rights as Israelis. They have an Israeli identity card. They get to vote. In fact, it was a Palestinian judge who put Moshe Katsav, the ex-president of Israel, in prison. How anybody can turn around and say that Israel is an apartheid state, I actually really fail to understand. Maybe Mahmoud could enlighten us on that.
Mahmoud, the same question to you. Do you agree with the labeling of Israel as an apartheid state?
Well, can you just write it because I'm not very good in English, so I need to get the exact meaning of the word apartheid.
Yeah, 1 second.
Please.
Yeah, 1 second.
Max, I also can't hear Mahmoud very well. I can hear you much better than I can hear him.
Yeah, I hear Mahmoud. If you just want to, if on your headphones, if you want to just speak into your microphone and like hold it up to your mouth, that will probably allow your voice to come in a lot clearer and louder.
So the microphone is in my computer. It's in my computer, so I can. Yes.
I
So
think.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you, Richie. Do you hear him a little bit better?
No, I hear him the same.
Okay.
Let's try anyway. I'll stick my ears. Let's try
No problem.
Can you hear me, Max, better than you can hear Mahmoud, or do you hear us both the same?
I hear you kind of both the same, honestly. But yeah, I do hear you clearly, Richie, and Mahmoud. I just typed in the question inside the text chat. Do you see it?
Yes, I see. So, well, I guess it's much better than other Arab countries, but yes, I agree with living Israel. Yeah.
Okay. So what exactly is it, Mahmoud, that makes you think that it does deserve that apartheid label?
Well, I'm not going to say that it's very apartheid, but I'm going to say that they are. How can I say this? They are just to. They did a lot of injustice for many people.
Okay, great. And so, Mahmoud, just the one thing I was going to share with you is that
I know. Yes.
When you're moving your computer, I think that's part of the reason why it might not be coming in that well. Are you moving your computer when you're speaking?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you want to place your computer down like on a desk, or if you just want to not move it, that will help in the quality. I think that's why Richie might not be hearing you that well because it's moving.
Okay. Just could you wait a minute?
Yeah. No problem. Mahmoud, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Can
Oh,
you hear me?
yeah. Is it placed on a desk
Yes.
now? Okay, great. Great. Richie,
Yes.
do you hear, that might work a little bit better. Richie, you still
I
there?
hear Mahmoud. Yeah, I hear him better now.
Okay, great. I think that's what it was. Okay, no
Okay.
problem. So ultimately, Richie, in going into a few of the items. I mean, when you look at the idea behind there being, these, I think it's okay to say, upwards of 100, checkpoints within the West Bank, which subject people to, living situations. Which for example, last week we had an individual on Vonvo living in the West Bank, a Palestinian, and he shared with us that um, he had yet to go to Jerusalem in over 11 years. He had yet to set foot in Jerusalem. And he said a majority of the reason is due to not only checkpoints but also just being not having or being able to receive the proper identification. What's your response to someone who he was a regular 25-year-old individual? What's your response to someone who's not able to perform those sorts of traveling actions in a
Okay. Well, first of all, I strongly sympathise with him because it's not a great situation. I think the crux of the matter is that because Israel is basically dealing with two authorities in the Palestinian entity. You're dealing with Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and you're dealing with Fatah in the West Bank. You know, it's very difficult to relax security when you've got a partner on the other side that doesn't recognise you, that you're actually allowed to exist. I mean, how does Mahmoud answer that question? And I just wanted, before he answers, I'd just like to take him back to the good times when I was actually living in Israel, the times of your beloved King Hussein. And if ever there was a piece in the offering, it was at that time. And let me just share with you that when Rabin was murdered by a right-wing extremist, a Jewish right-wing extremist, a few months later they did an opinion poll in Israel as to who should be the next president of Israel. And actually, after Bill Clinton, he was number one. King Hussein of Jordan was the second most popular person. He was so loved by people in Israel, you had no idea. And so I mean, it's complicated. I mean, there are a lot less checkpoints than there were. They built the security barrier, and since then there's been practically no suicide bombing. Unfortunately, history has told, I think, the Israelis that they've got to be very, very wary. But I sympathise strongly with this guy who lives in the West Bank and is not able to travel. Obviously, I don't know the circumstances of this particular case, but I can tell you that when I lived back in Israel, I lived basically on the Green Line. And I used to take my boys over to play football with the people in the Palestinian village next door, and we were the best of friends. So it's very sad that the situation has become what it is. Right. I can only hope that we do get peace in some form, and that the barriers can all come down, like what happened in Gaza. I mean, look what happened in Gaza. Israel withdrew from Gaza unilaterally, uprooted hundreds of thousands, maybe, of people, only to find that Hamas started firing tens of thousands of rockets at Israel. I mean, it's not a very good background for peace talks.
Right. Mahmoud, do you want to respond to anything that Richard just had to say?
Yes, I want to respond, but let me gather my ideas first. First of all, when you're talking about the checkpoints, nobody gets, like, if you were a Palestinian and you have a Palestinian identity. I've never been there, so I just basically on what I hear or what I see. So if you were a foreign or an Israeli, you will be free to move wherever you want. But here, when you are just a Palestinian who wants to move from, let me say, from Hebron to Ramallah, you need to move through many checkpoints, and if there was anything against you, and they won't let you move. First of all, second of all, like when you say about the rockets that are going out from Gaza, I'm not with it. I'm not with that idea. But the rocket, when you're comparing the influence of the rockets that are going out from Gaza to Israel, and when airstrikes come from the Israeli army to the Palestinians in Gaza, do you compare that they are at the same power? I'm agree with that. That shouldn't be happening from the first place. But what do you think? Like one rocket wouldn't harm anyone in Israel. Sometimes it hurts, but the one rocket from one missile from the Israeli army is almost destroy a whole building. What do you think that it's okay?
No, I mean,
It's,
go ahead, Richie.
okay, it's a good point, Mahmoud. It's a good point you're making. The problem is that it's always a question of what comes first. I don't think any country in the world. I don't think. I mean, you're having a big crisis on your border with Syria at the moment. I would love to know how long your king would accept Syrian rockets being fired into the north of Jordan before he retaliated. You see, Israel's been suffering from the attacks from Gaza for so long without having any kind of response. And I'd love for you to come in Israel to Israel. I mean, and see for yourself. But I can tell you on very good experience that the Israeli army holds in the highest esteem human life. It's the only country in the world, and in fact, I actually said this at UN Watch just last week. It's the only country in the world that will actually send over envelopes and documents and leaflets and drop them from the helicopters onto the people of Gaza and saying, please stay away from this terrorist cell who have put a rocket site in the middle of a mosque or in a school because, it's firing on our people and we have to take them out. And Mahmoud, just answer me one question. Why are there no shelters in Gaza? Israel has to protect its citizens, so if the Gazans fire a rocket, it takes 13 seconds for it to hit Sderot, which is the nearest kibbutz, or the nearest town to the Gaza Strip. Now, obviously, Israel's going to have very few casualties because there's a shelter in every house in Israel. Why is there not a single shelter in the Gaza Strip? I don't understand. Does Hamas not want to protect its citizens?
First of all, I'm going to make it clear that I'm not Hamas. I don't know what Hamas and what they present and whatever they do. I'm going to tell you that they are not even allowed to build buildings in Gaza Strip. Everything that is gets in Gaza Strip is from Israel, and Israel just won't let the cement and anything that used to build to get into Gaza Strip. First of all, second of all, that there's no I don't know the word in English.
Which word?
I can't remember the word in English.
Okay.
Like, do you know the word in Arabic? Can you understand Arabic?
I
will look at it in Google.
You can go into Google Translate and just type it in; it will come out in English.
Well, that's what I'm doing right now.
Right. So, Mahmoud, while you're doing that, Richie, maybe afterwards. Yeah, go ahead, Mahmoud.
Yes, there's no infrastructure for this kind of thing, and Well, I do think that I agree that Hamas is a mistake by not protecting the people. But let's go from the beginning. What causes this problem for the people? What what makes the people in Hamas? What makes the people in the Palestinians feel that they are injustice? What makes me as I have a Jordanian nationality, but after all, I when I tell the people about myself, I say I'm Palestinian. What makes me feel like I am injustice? That the people were dragged out from their country. They are not allowed to be in their country. 48. They're not allowed to be in their country, and they feel that they are injustice. And when you feel injustice, you would do anything.
So Richie, if you have any direct response, we'd love to hear it. What I was going to ask you is, Mahmoud brings up the idea behind infrastructure. We know that there's a blockade of any goods and supplies going in and out of both Gaza and of the West Bank. Do you think that it's a rational argument? It's a reasonable argument to make that because of the limited supply of goods that can come in and out of these areas, that Hamas doesn't, or the PLO or Fatah doesn't have the resources to build these sorts of these shelters. Do they not have the space, maybe because people make the argument that it's a very condensed area?
Sure. Okay. Let me answer three things. First of all, please don't talk about a blockade of goods going into Gaza. There's 15,000 tons of goods that go into Gaza every week from Israel through the Kfar Kani crossing. So please let's not say. I mean, obviously Israel's not going to let arms come in to the Gaza Strip, but there's no limitation on cement, Mahmoud. I'm not sure where you got that idea from. If you go, you can go online and you can see lots and lots of photos of Gaza, five-star hotels and villas and all the rest of it. Okay, it's not all like that, of course, but there is 15,000 tons of goods that goes into the Gaza Strip every week from Israel. And let me tell you that even when Israel was attacked by these hundreds of thousands of rockets, there was not one week that there were goods that didn't go into Israel. That's the first thing. And second thing is all the electricity in Gaza is also sent by Israel. And the Hamas Authority doesn't pay for that electricity. It has a very, very large outstanding bill, but Israel's never cut off the electricity. I mean, so, that's the other thing. So, and as for nothing coming into Gaza, there's plenty. I mean, I know, I don't want to talk too much about Gaza because I know that you're a Jordanian Palestinian and probably, I won't say you hate Hamas as much as the Israelis do, but I'm sure that you're obviously from Fatah, which is fine. But there's a lot of weaponry and stuff that comes into the Gaza Strip from Egypt through the tunnels. You must know that, obviously.
Yes, but just to let you know that I'm not also with Fatah. I'm just a Palestinian who went to get back to his land. I don't care about the name. I don't care about whatever. I want to get back to my original village. That's it.
So
the land that my grandpa was taken away from.
So
just to make it clear.
So Richie, what is your response to a lot of people such as Mahmoud, who talk about? I mean, he didn't actually call it the right to return, but people on Vonvo have called it. They feel like they're being denied their right to return to their country. What is your response to those people who are feeling upset about that?
Yeah, okay, I understand that. Okay, first of all, let's just look at a little bit of history. When Mahmoud was talking about 1948, that's the year that every single Arab country launched an attack on Israel in an attempt to drive Israel into the sea. Now, yes, good for Israel, I suppose, that they won that war, and the Arab nations didn't succeed in what they were trying to do. That's the first thing. Secondly, I want to put on record that the Palestinians have exactly the same rights to live in that territory as the Israelis do. Israel is not going to disappear, and the Palestinians have a justified legal claim to that land as well. So there is no solution other than a solution which provides peace and security to both. I mean, but Mahmoud, it has to start with the Palestinians recognizing that Israel is not going to go belly up and let 4 million or however many it is refugees come in and turn Palestine into turn that territory into a Palestinian state where Israel has to disappear. If only there were. I mean, I remember at the time when Saeb Erekat was very pro-peace and everything. I mean, obviously he's changed a bit his tune, but in the time when I lived there, everything was going fine. Really, it was obviously upset by Rabin being killed. But how can we have in a country that has 6 million people? How can Israel allow 4 million Palestinian refugees to come back? I don't know how you can justify that, because you've seen the new Palestinian flag. Let's not beat about the bush here. The new Palestinian flag has a flag on it where Palestine is the whole of Israel, including Tel Aviv, Haifa, Jerusalem. I passionately believe that the Palestinians should have a state of their own. I think that Jerusalem should be its capital. I think that West Jerusalem should be the capital of Israel. I'll probably be shot down by a lot of my Israeli friends for saying that. But I think the Palestinians have exactly the same right to live in that country as the Israelis do. I just think that they have to make peace. There is no other alternative. And that has to start by the Palestinians recognizing the right of Israel to exist. Why will the Palestinians not? Why will Abbas not stand up and say, as the leader of Fatah, say that Israel has the right to exist? Do you know how many problems that would solve if he would get off his backside and say?
Go ahead, Mahmoud.
Okay. When he said that, how I can't imagine like 4 million refugees to give back to their country, but is it okay that back to the year of 1948? Is it okay to brag about, I don't know the exact number, about 500,000, 100,000? I can't remember, but most of us were in what is now Israel, whereas now Israel exists, to be dragged from their country, to be put in refugee camps, to be suffering from everything. Like they had their own houses, their own. I can send you like our village before. Right now, it is from the same name. It has almost the same name. They changed it a little bit, but the houses are still there. The people just want to be in their country. I want to be in my country. I'm not considering myself as a Jordanian. And when you say about Jordan is not going, like the whole Israel is, how can I say this? I'm getting very emotional when you're talking about to have the Jewish or the Israelis do have the right to be, but I don't have in the land, in the Holy Land,
right.
But I don't have the right to be there. But I'm from that land also.
Right. So Richie, do you? I mean, just
Okay.
the idea that Mahmoud's bringing up. Do you see where he's coming from? What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. No, I absolutely agree. But I mean, the whole thing comes from basically having a peace. If you have peace between the two nations, whoever wants to go back and live in Palestine, the Israelis would have no say over who would over who comes in and who doesn't come in. I mean, you can see, Mahmoud, you can see how the Palestinians, your fellow Palestinians, are treated in Lebanon, in Syria. I mean, the Palestinian refugee camp that's near Damascus has been attacked in the last week, I think 18 times by al-Bashar's regime. Why is the world not in uproar about that? Why isn't the UN making resolutions against the Syrian government for doing that? It's not the there's a lot of Arab people who are attacking the Palestinians, and nobody is saying a word. I feel extremely angry about it. I mean, the Palestinians have their own state, and then whoever wants to come into the Palestinian state, it's like saying, I'm in the UK, and how can France say who comes to the UK and who doesn't? But it only starts from having a peace with two separate countries living in peace and security. That's the only way you could do it. I don't see any alternative to that. What's the alternative?
Right. Mahmoud, do you want to respond?
Well, my alternative is just to have. I'm not with. Yes, I don't have the idea. I'm not with the whole idea of to have two separate countries, states for different people. I don't have that idea, and I don't like it. And I'm not with it. I am with the idea of the whole people. Of like, if you were a Jew, or if you were Palestinian, Christian Palestinian, you have the right, or a Jewish, to be in that land. That's my idea. That's my idea. I'm not with the idea that we should have a separate state for the Palestinian and one is for the Israelis. I think that would be like
Well,
practical.
so Mahmoud, I have
There
an
would peace. That peace won't be permanent.
I have an interesting question for both of you, relating to like a potential solution. So, what happens if Mahmoud and Richie, if there was a peace agreement, fostered on each side between Israelis and Palestinians, and that peace agreement said that there would be two states, but based off there being two states, all the refugees around the world, such as Mahmoud and his family, would be able to come into both states and determine where they want to settle, whether it's in the West Bank, Gaza, or in the in the other areas of Israel. If that was allowed, and Palestinians were given their own state versus Israel, but both peoples, because there are Israelis that want to live in the West Bank or live in Gaza, both peoples were able to go and settle wherever they'd like, and let's say choose whatever citizenship they like based on where they want to settle. Would that make sense to you?
For me,
Yeah. Does that?
yes, I would think that it would make sense, but why would we? Yeah, but why would we say that we would have separate Palestinian state and Israeli state that are separated, and I have the right? Why should it be just one country, like Jordan as a one country, and you have the right to settle wherever you want?
Well, yeah, and I mean, it could be that way, but I guess the question would be is, if it was like that, would Palestinians be willing to live in a country called Israel? And I think that's where there seems to be an issue, correct?
Yeah, I think guys, that Mahmoud's suggestion, it sounds very nice on paper, but I don't think it's workable, because I don't think any Palestinian, or I say any Palestinian, but the majority of Palestinians would like to live in a country called Palestine. The majority of Israelis would like to, or all Israelis would like to live in a country called Israel, rather than Palestine. I don't see how you can have. I mean, there are a couple of villages actually in Israel that have complete integrality between the Israelis and the Palestinians. There's a place called Mevia Shalom, I think it's called, up in the Galilee, which is half Palestinian and half Israeli, and that actually works quite well. So maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot, but I think it has to be based on two separate states. I can't see that. Because Mahmoud, if the country was called Israel, let's say we said, okay, Palestinians have the right of return, but the place is still going to be called Israel. I don't think the Palestinians would want to come, and I don't think the Israelis would agree to having Israel renamed Palestine. To be honest, I think that's the main problem, really. So I think really the solution, if there is one, is to have two separate states, one called Palestine, one called Israel. They live in peace. I mean, what Max is proposing really is like a common market. Like I, as a Brit, can go and live and work in France without any problems. Rather than, let's say, Americans and Canadians, where Max is from. I don't think he has the right to go and work in Canada. I'm not sure if it's Canada or America. I think it's America. But you don't have the right to, I don't think, to go and work in Canada without restriction, do you, Max?
So, I mean, in terms of traveling, from America to Canada, the border the border patrol is nothing too crazy where you're waiting on hour or two long lines unless it's like a very busy day. Where someone couldn't do that. I personally don't know anyone who does that just because I'm from the more southern area of New York, so no one from my area would be going to Canada. But like for example, where I went to school in Buffalo, which is right on the border of Canada and the U.S., I want to think that it is. I want to think that it is possible that there were people in that area that work in Canada, but I can't verify that. But I want to think just because of the border being so close, it is possible.
Yeah, maybe Canada's not a good example. Maybe Mexico's a better example. I mean, if you imagine if Barack Obama said, if you're a Mexican, you can come and live and work in America, no restrictions and nothing. I mean, that has kind of happened a bit anyway. But I think the Americans will be up in arms about it. Really.
Right.
But anyway, coming back to the main point that Mahmoud is saying, because I understand it, what Mahmoud is saying, and Mahmoud, my friend, correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying that all the Palestinians from around the world can come and live in Israel, and that Israel and Palestine could be one country. Is that what you're saying?
Because they were one country. When you say that I want to separate a country between the Arabs and one, like make the historic Palestine, one between the Arab and one between the Israelis, and give the Arab right now what is now on 20%, only 20% on the historic Palestine, that would be unfair. And when you put the whole people in West Bank, that would be like it would be so crowded like Gaza. And no one wants. Would you agree? Like if I came, you live in Great Britain, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I live in the UK.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yeah, I live in the UK.
Hello? Yes. And if somebody like the United Nations, like they came and separated your country, they divided your country, they said like I will give like from the area you are living in, I will give like the French 5% or 80% of your country, and the people will get just 20% of that country. Would you agree with that? I'm not
no,
going
of
to.
not, but you have to understand
me,
it's
not.
Mahmoud,
It's not
there's a
possible
difference.
to give.
But the main problem that people feel in Israel is that the Palestinians are not a partner for peace, because we don't see any signs. I say we. I mean the Israelis don't see any signs or many signs from the Palestinian side that say let's make peace together, let's meet no conditions, and it has to start with a recognition of Israel's right to exist, and we don't. There isn't even that in Israel or in the Palestinian territory. I think it was very close at the time of King Hussein. Really, it was very, very close to getting. He came to the Galilee, and they all met at Bet Gabriel, on the restaurant, on the Kinneret, the Lake of Tiberias, the Sea of Tiberias. I don't know. It was very close then.
So
I would love to agree with you, Mahmoud, that Israelis and Palestinians can all live together in one land. I would say the majority of Israelis don't see anybody on the Palestinian side who's willing to step up and say, let's make peace. Let's have the two peoples living together. All we hear from, Hamas and Fatah, but all we hear is, let's go and shoot, let's go and kill all the Jews, let's go and put them into the thing. Israel is Palestine. I mean, even on your Palestinian flag, Mahmoud, Tel Aviv is in Palestine. How can that be? Haifa is in Palestine. There is no such thing as Israel on the Palestinian map. Even you go into a school in Ramallah, and I've been into plenty of schools in Ramallah, and there's no mention of Israel, even mentioned in the school books.
Well, I don't know much about the Palestinian schools, but what I do know that the Palestinians want to be in their country. Like, that's the main problem, that everybody. Hello.
Yeah, I hear you,
Yeah, I
Mal.
can hear you.
We hear you.
Uh, that's the main problem, that the Palestinians, that land, the historic Palestine, when there's no Israel, that's our land, and I'm not going to say what happened is happened. There's now the Israelis and there's now the Palestinians who live in the same land, and we need to learn how to share this land. And nobody is willing to learn. Many Palestinians say there's nothing as Israel. Many Israelis also say that there's no such a thing known as Palestinians. First of all, when the Israelis came, when the Jews came, that we are coming to our land, okay, and it's a land without that. It's becoming it disappeared. Like when they first came in the 1948, they came and they said that's a land without people, and there was people, and we are part of that people.
Richie, I have an interesting question to ask you that comes up often. Um, you talk about Rabin being killed, whatever it was, 10, 20 years ago, right? At this point, 20 years ago, right?
85.
85, so even more than that. Okay, so 26 years ago, 27 years ago. What I was going to say is he was killed by, a very right-wing radical, Israeli with strong beliefs. There are, and strong beliefs. One would think, I'm not an expert, but one would think against, Arab Palestinian individuals, strong opinions against them.
No, of course.
So my question is the same at the same time that there are individuals in Hamas that want Israel off the map. Uh, is it safe to say that there are plenty of Israelis that want nothing to do with Palestinians, and ultimately we are at a disconnect between two very radical groups of individuals that it's not expected to see any peace fostered with radical ideologies on both ends.
Okay. First of all, there's no argument to the fact there are a great deal of right-wing Israelis that are for annexing the West Bank, and there's a lot of settlement construction going on, which obviously the world is very up in arms about. But I think there's more of a balance in Israel in that there are also a lot of people, and probably the majority of Israelis, I would say, who want peace. And I guess Israelis don't see from Hamas or from Fatah anybody standing up and saying, "This is crazy. Why are we killing each other? We must make peace. That we must sit down and make a plan to make this work." You just don't see that from the Palestinian side. Why can't the Palestinians come to the table and start talking about how to solve it? They still seem to think, and it's an illusion, really. I mean, it's probably difficult to hear that, but it's an illusion to think that Israel is going to let itself be pushed into the sea. It's not. It's a country that is there and is here to stay. I disagree with Mahmoud to saying that there's been no Jewish presence in that land. I mean, Jews have been in that land for 3,000 years. I mean, it's a historical fact. Leaving aside all the propaganda. Mahmoud, how do you account for the fact that in the Jewish Torah the word Jerusalem is mentioned, I think, 1,400 times. In the Quran, it's not mentioned once. The word Jerusalem is not mentioned in the Quran a single time. And I've read the Quran, so...
Yes.
Why?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I'm not... in Quran, it was mentioned in one place, the Masjid al-Aqsa. Masjid al-Aqsa, which is now the temple ground. So it was mentioned. Yes, it was mentioned about when Prophet Muhammad went from the Mecca to Jerusalem, and he went. I guess you know the story. But
Yeah.
when you say that, like, I'm not going to say it's not for me. It's not religious. It's not religious. When you say about the Palestinians, what could you what make you know, like, if Palestinians were Jews before that, and after that they converted to Christianity, and after they converted to Islam? What makes you think like there's Arab immigrants who came from Arabia to Palestine or to Jordan? That's like, what? Why would you think? Yes, I agree with you. There were Jews, and in Quran we say when Moses moved from Egypt to they got into Palestine or into Israel, ancient Israel. But when he says, but there are people who are living there. There were people who are living there who were taken, who were dragged out from their country. Would that be fair for you if I came to your house and I got you out? I'm not with what happens, despite what happens before. I'm with right now. I want to be able to have a peace. I want to be able to have to live a normal life. When you say about the Palestinians, like Jerusalem wasn't mentioned once. No, it was mentioned in the Quran. It was mentioned once, yes. And if because I don't know. I honestly to tell you, I don't know.
I think I said, Mahmoud, to you before. I think that the Jews and the Arabs, the Palestinians, have exactly, well, maybe not exactly the same rights, but I think they both have a valid right to live in that land. I've always said that. I just disagree with you. I just don't think. Well, I think the history has proven that those two peoples can't live in the same place as an integrated people. I mean, there are countries, in the Middle East where, I mean, there are no Jews left. All the Jews have left because, I mean, look at Egypt. Even the Christians in Egypt, the Copts are being persecuted and basically being run into extinction by Morsi and his crowd in Egypt. So, I think the Palestinians. First of all, I'd love to see a Palestinian demonstration saying we don't want to send rockets to Israel. We don't want Israel to send bombs to us. We want to make peace. You never see a demonstration like that. You see a demonstration like that in Tel Aviv, in Rabin Square, every week or every 2 weeks. Where are the moderate Palestinians, the moderate Arabs? Well, why are they not up in arms and saying we want to go back to our homeland? Let's make a deal with Israelis instead of saying we just want to push the Israelis into the sea.
So when you say like we want to drag the Israelis, that thing happens when, like, I'm not with. First of all, the main reason is like the Arabs. I agree with you. The Arabs, the main reasons for what happened to the Palestinians. But Palestinians were injustice. Like when you say about the when the Palestinians or Arabs say we will drag the Jews to the sea, that happened on, I guess, on Jamal Abdel Nasser. Jamal Abdel Nasser. He's the one who said that, and let the people repeat it after him. That's the problem. That some few people who control people and let them to be like this.
Richie, I'd like to maybe ask you an interesting point. Maybe you can educate the viewers, people who watch this video. I think it'd be great to get your perspective. And I have another individual from South Africa who maybe we can pair you up with next time. That would be great to hear both of you go back and forth in this conflict. What I was going to ask you, Richie, is you said you lived in South Africa during apartheid. Could you share what differences, similarities, or just overall comments of what you saw, based upon that experience?
Sure. Okay. Well, I have to say first of all that the apartheid problem in South Africa, I won't say it's disappeared, but has significantly decreased. Obviously, because black South Africans make up 90% of the population down there. But I had lots of friends when I lived in South Africa. Lots of black friends, lots of white friends. I've still been privy to a huge amount of racism in that country. Probably the most racism I've ever seen. Down in South Africa, where a white man will be walking down the street, and if there's a black guy walking towards him, he has to go into the road to to walk past the guy. I mean, if you look at the extreme right in Israel, they don't want to sit in the bus with a woman. So I mean, you can call that apartheid if you like, but I mean that comes from a deep-seated religious faith that is obviously shared by the Saudis, and at least in Israel, I suppose a woman can drive. They can't even drive in Saudi Arabia. So I'm actually incensed by the anti-Semitism that's coming out of South Africa at the moment, and I'm trying to get active in the community down there to combat it, because it's just unbelievable. I mean, to say that you can't buy product from Israel, but if it comes from inside the West Bank, I mean, what the hell? I don't understand what that's about. So it's the one thing that really incenses me, Max, is this thing about Israel being an apartheid state. I mean, there's only one city in the world that only one religion can go there, and that's Mecca. Which, if you're not a Muslim, you can't even get inside the city limits. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because I understand that people want to make Hajj and Umrah and everything, and that's a religious duty, which is fine. I mean, how can people? I mean, is there a place is there any place in Israel that an Israeli Arab or a Palestinian Arab can't go to? The only place that Jews can't go, in Israel is the Temple Mount. They are completely banned from going to the Temple Mount. So how can people call Israel apartheid? I really don't understand that, when Israel, by its own volition, bans Jews from going to the Temple Mount because it's such a holy place for Muslims.
Right. Mahmoud, do you have any response to that?
Well, I'm not in a place that allows me to talk about apartheid in Israel, because I've never been to Israel or the West Bank, so I'm not in a place that because I don't believe the thing what comes to me from media. The media is always giving me one picture, like it always gives me that Israel is apartheid country. But I'm not. But what I say, Israel is a little bit apartheid country. When you see what happened, a friend of me, her name is Sarah. She's American, but she looks like an Arab. She's not an Arab, but she looks like an Arab. When she had to come to Amman, she had to go through Ben Gurion Airport. So when she came, they thought that she was Palestinians. If she were a Palestinian, so what happened that they drag it out from the group that she were in, and they started asking her questions and questions and questions. Who are you? What are you doing? Why are you coming here like this? Why? Because they thought she was an Arab. So what do you think? Like, they thought that you were an Arab, so they started questioning you. Are you a terrorist? Are you? Why should I think that's apartheid or not? I'm not in. Again, I repeat, I'm not in a place that allows me to. Israel is an apartheid country or not, because I've never been there. But I guess that the Palestinians still have right. Palestinians still have right to more rights than the Palestinians in Israel, than the Palestinians in Lebanon.
Is there what exactly, Richie? You brought up before. What exactly and why? Is there any specific reasoning of why Palestinians are being persecuted, treated unfairly in Lebanon and in other areas?
Um, Let me tell you a little bit about Palestinians in Lebanon because I've been to Lebanon many times. The Palestinians are looked on in Lebanon and Syria, in fact, as very much a second-class nation. I hate to say that because, in my view, they're not. You know that in Lebanon, for example, a Palestinian has no right to work. He has no right to do anything other than most menial jobs. They are completely downtrodden, and they all live in refugee camps. Why? Why are Palestinians? I mean, why are Palestinians treated like that in Lebanon and Syria? I have no idea. I mean, why between 1948 and 1967, when the West Bank was basically part of Jordan, really, at the time? Why didn't all these questions come up at the time?
Right. Okay. No. I mean, it's
only in the '67 war that Israel took back Jerusalem.
no. They're very very interesting points you're both bringing up. Would you like to maybe the turn the discussion towards another item for both of you?
Sure.
Yeah. One thing that I want to talk about is, you hear on both. You hear. It's actually funny. Before last night, I want to say that I had only seen videos of Israelis, let's say, saying that Palestinian children are being brainwashed, to to believe to hate Jews and all of that stuff. And then last night, I came across a video of some Israeli Jews who were, I mean, from the look of the video, it looks like they have already been brainwashed. I mean, they were yelling out, they were at like a soccer game, and they were yelling out these chants like, kill all the Arabs, etc., etc. I wanted to maybe bring up this point. I want to maybe try and address it throughout the weekend. What do you think this brainwashing is all about, and how do we stop it? I mean, we're talking about little kids who are not even 10 years old that have no reason to, feel any hatred towards either of the people, and yet, it looks like it's coming from higher up, parents who are probably feeding this. What do you think that's all about? Richie, do you want to go ahead first?
Sure.
Okay, but I just want to. My battery is going to die out. Just I want to plug it in.
Okay.
Wait.
Yeah, of course.
You can continue speaking.
Of course.
Okay.
I didn't understand. Did he leave?
He's just going to get his computer charger.
Okay. So should I wait then, or?
I mean, you're fine to go ahead. He'll address the question after. No problem.
Okay, cool. Well, listen. I think every country has its lunatic fringe, man. I don't think you'll see in Israel any school book that doesn't recognize the existence of Palestine, that doesn't talk about the Palestinians as a nation. There is no question that there is a fringe on the right of society in Israel that is anti-peace, that wants Israel from the Mediterranean through to the I think Euphrates, I think it is even. So there are, but I mean they're very much a minority in Israel, Max. Very much a minority. These extreme right and the people that aren't supporters. I think if you ask the normal everyday Israeli, you would see that they definitely recognize that the Palestinians have rights. They definitely recognize that they need to have their own country. The problem I have is that on the other side, it's actually government policy. I mean, you go to any, and I've been to Jericho and Ramallah and Shechem and Nablus, these places, and you only got to look at the school book, and there is no mention of anything to do with Israel in the school books. It's It's government policy. There is nothing like that in Israel. So yes, there's a lunatic fringe, but it's between a lunatic fringe on the right of Israeli society and basically government policy on the part of the Palestinians. You've only got to go into memory, MEMRI, and see the videos that they upload every week of what's going on in the mosques and what the imams are saying, to understand that basically it's much more of a central policy destroying the Jews than the lunatic right in Israel that's saying destroy the Arabs. You won't find many people that are like that. It's a shame. It's a real missed opportunity for the Arabs, because when the Israelis left Gaza, they could have turned Gaza into an amazing place, high tech center. What have the Arabs gained from it? Nothing. They've gained nothing. They are in the same situation now that they were 20 years ago, and it's a real shame. Look how Israel's come forward in leaps and bounds, Nobel Prize winners and all this,
right?
Science and education. What have the Palestinians done since that time? Nothing. They're still fighting amongst themselves. You've got Hamas and Fatah still fighting amongst themselves. You've got the Palestinian refugees being slaughtered in Syria, and nobody seems to want to make a comment about it. It's unbelievable.
Right.
That's what I have to say.
Oh, not sure what happened to Mahmoud. I guess what I would just ask is, hold on one second. So Roger, who's inside the room right now, asked you a question in the text chat, Richie, and he says, question for Richie, what is the justification for it that Israel has to exist?
What is the justification that Israel has to exist? Okay, what country is he from?
If it's the same Roger that has appeared on the on Vonvo before, he's from Australia, but it could be someone different.
Okay, so cool. So let me throw the question back at him. What right does Australia have to exist? What's the difference? What right does any country have to exist? It's a very strange question. I really don't understand. What right does Israel have to exist? The same right that Australia has to exist. It's a sovereign nation in the United Nations, and there's no question it has the right to exist. The problem I have for Roger, if he's listening, is that you've got the United Nations, which is basically just turning into an anti-Israeli forum, and I just don't understand. Why? There's a lot of Muslim infiltration into. I know Julia Goddard is doing. I think her name is Julia Gilliard. I think is doing a good job with making it. People speak English there and things. And what she's saying is dead right. Saying if you don't like it here, then you can leave. Nobody's asking you to conform. Nobody's asking. You shouldn't ask us to conform to your things. Your beliefs. So. Roger, why does Australia have the right to exist? It's the same question that Israel has the right to exist. It's a sovereign nation. The problem that people have in Israel is that all the countries that surround it, and there are a few of them, like 20, don't recognize its right to exist. So what would Roger have the Israelis do? Pack up and go and live where? In Micronesia?
Right, of course. I actually just asked Roger if he'd like to join in on the conversation. Maybe he can express his, elaborate a little bit more on his question.
He's in Australia. It's really late there. It's about 2 in the morning, I think.
Yeah, Roger has he's appeared on multiple occasions on the program. Hey Mahmoud, how are you?
He's back.
He's back. Mahmoud, the question I'd asked before before you had left was on the idea behind the brainwashing of children. Richie brought up the idea behind school books inside of the West Bank. The government authorities are not putting anything related to Israel in those school books. I shared with Richie that just last night I saw a video regarding a soccer team in Israel, and they have these kids that are like chanting these "We hate Arabs" chants at soccer games, and we're talking about 5-year-old kids. I wanted to get your opinion on where you think the idea behind brainwashing children comes from, and if this is something that needs to be stopped.
I guess the brainwashing comes from the higher authorities and from the media and from the parents. Like I was one of the people who was I was one of the people who was brainwashed and honestly to I was raised on I'm not going to say hatred, but I'm willing to do anything to give back to my land. The brainwashing is coming from the high upper authorities and from the media mainly, and sometimes from the parents. They are raising many parents raising their kids on hate.
So in your case, do you think that? I mean, Mahmoud, have you been the brainwashing that you're talking about? Can you elaborate a little bit more on your personal experience, how that worked? Because I mean, right now, I mean, would you say that you don't? It doesn't seem, but maybe I'm wrong, that you hate Jews. What exactly is your stance on that? Were you?
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. Could
So
go ahead.
for me when yeah I was raised or like I'm only 20 years old, so I was raised on back to the year 2000 and 2001. There was the beginning of the second intifada. So when that happened and everybody was shocked with what's happening, that the people who were seeing people who were killed and the killing of the children, and like it was war. It was war between the Palestinians and Israel. So that's how I was raised, or I was in, especially in the school. They were they were telling us about these are your enemies. These are people who like this. For me, it wasn't like it was. I was brainwashed. Like these are my enemies. I should kill them all like this. No, because in Jordan it's not like in the West Bank or in Gaza Strip. In Jordan, there's some restricts about talking about Israel and this stuff. But mainly also from the media. Media are giving picture that from the both sides that the Palestinians or the Arabs are going to or the Palestinians are going to avenge the Israelis and the Israelis is going to avenge the Palestinians. That's it.
Right, Richie. What's your thoughts on that? And Mahmoud brings up the media. What do you think the role the media is playing in this conflict?
Well, I think if you want me to talk about media, I think you're probably going to have to extend the discussion for another 24 hours. I mean,
Well, Richie, what I would say quickly is, if you want to just kind of sum up your thoughts quickly, it'd be great on the media, because Vonvo is a place where on conflicts like this, and later on today we're gonna have people talking from Egypt. We're trying to expose the true facts relating to these conflicts and what's going on, and giving people the opportunity to share their opinions versus what's coming from the corporate media. So maybe if you have any points that tie into what we're trying to do here on Vonvo, and how if there's any differences that you see from a program like this versus what maybe the media is feeding, we'd love to hear it if you want to just tie it up quickly.
Okay, well, Max, if you're looking for a compliment, you can take it from me that it's very interesting and actually very good to be able to discuss directly with a Jordanian Palestinian in an environment that allows us both to express our ideas freely without having to to insult each other, which is, I think, very good. I have a complete bee in my bonnet with the BBC over where I am. In fact, their Jerusalem correspondent has been, I'm not sure if he's been suspended yet, but he has been cited for unbelievably anti-Israeli comments, to the extent that he, on his blog, has been showing pictures of children being that have been slaughtered in Syria and telling them that it's Israelis who have done this in Gaza. There's been numerous examples of this, especially during the recent situation in Gaza between Israel and Hamas. It just staggers me the level of anti-Semitism at the UN and in the press. I mean, you've only got to look as far as the Guardian newspaper if you want to get a completely distorted viewpoint of what is going on. There. I mean, I haven't lived in Jordan, but I've lived in Dubai. I've been to Jordan maybe 100 times. The nicest people live there. And it just amazes me that the Lebanese and the Jordanians and the Israelis cannot make peace between them. They're a very, very similar race. I mean, I go to Beirut a lot, and, if you go down to Solidaire, which is the pedestrian area in Beirut, you could close your eyes and open them again and you would think you're in Tel Aviv. It's completely the same. But
really?
the media bias against Israel is just absolutely horrendous. And I welcome these kinds of forums where Mahmoud can talk and I'll listen and think about it, and he'll listen to me, and maybe together we can work, maybe contribute to finding a way through this mess.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very interesting point that you bring up, and you're saying that there are the way that these three countries are displayed on a map, and they're similar cultures. It's amazing that such a large conflict would exist. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's what I was saying is it was so close. Back in the 80s, it was and early 90s. I think Rabin was killed actually not in 1985. I'll just check that again. But it was so close, and it just amazes me that two intelligent nations like the Palestinians and Israelis can't find a way through this. I mean, Clinton did a very good job when he was here, but he still eludes us, and obviously. It's not really it was 1995 that Rabin was killed, not 1985. I was out for 10 years. He did a very good job, but now look, Barack Obama. There's a lot of people in Israel, who think that he's throwing Israel under the bus right now. And yet others, he's funded the Iron Dome, which basically has kept Israelis safe against the Hamas rockets. So I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay. Guys, we've been speaking for almost an hour and 15 minutes. If you guys would like, I would be happy to continue having each of you continue your conversation. In a little while, we're going to be having someone from Egypt come on, and we're actually going to have our first Egyptian riots discussion. We would love to have you there. If you guys want to continue the conversation, you're welcome to. I guess I would leave you each with one question, unless if you want to continue talking, you can afterwards. But what would be your message to the world for anyone who were to see this video about this conflict? Mahmoud, do you want to go first?
No, I would like to hear Richie's opinion first.
Okay, go ahead, Richie.
Age before beauty, I think. My message to the world would be both sides have to grow up. Both sides have to realize that the Palestinians have a right to live in that territory. They have a right to have Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine. The Israelis are never going to negotiate on Jerusalem ever. It's always going to be the capital of Israel. And and the rest should be basically on the table. and they shouldn't let people like the UN and the financial constraints get involved. They need to sit down, negotiate with each other, and find a solution that works for everybody. Just look at the situation now in the south. There haven't been any rockets, only the odd one or two in the last 2 weeks since the ceasefire was signed. It's not even news. Nobody talks. You ask about the Gaza conflict now. Nobody even cares. You know, nothing's happening. The Hamas is spending billions of Iranian money rebuilding and probably restocking weapons. Who knows? They have to make peace. It's the only way. Two nations, two countries, and let everybody, like Mahmoud's family, they want to come back and live in their Palestine. They should do it. I just have a last question for Mahmoud. Mahmoud, have you ever tried to come to Israel?
Well, it's a bit complicated for me because I am. It's not easy for me because of my dad. My dad was born in Bethlehem, so when my dad he wanted to last year or 2 years before he wanted to renew his passport, and he couldn't. So because I'm going to say he's a Palestinian, and for me, so what goes for him, goes for me. So I'm hoping to go once. I'm hoping to go. I really want to go.
And Richie, I mean, do you consider that like a shame that just because his father is Palestinian, like you're speaking to Mahmoud right now, there's probably no reason you would suspect, at least I don't think, why you wouldn't let Mahmoud travel into Israel, pretty freely tomorrow. Would you agree with that? No reason at all, right?
No reason at all.
And do you know?
Go ahead, Mahmoud.
And do you know what makes me like be a little bit angry when you see the Israelis can be able to go to get in Jordan freely, total freely. They don't ask them for visa for anything. Just show them their passport. And when a Palestinian or a Jordan, when a Palestinian wants to go anywhere in the world, it's very hard for him. Or when a Jordanian wants to go to Palestine or to Israel, it's very hard for him also. So that's also kind of injustice. Like the person who has the power is able to rule and put rules to the others.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, listen. If you go to Lebanon, you cannot. I mean, I've got a British passport, obviously, and but there was once that I wanted to go to Lebanon, and I had an Israeli stamp in my passport to prove that I'd been there once, and I couldn't get in on a plane in London because you cannot get into Lebanon or Iran or Saudi if you even have an Israeli stamp in your passport. I mean, how apartheid is that?
That's part of the conflict. That's the main reason. And let me say that many people they take this as let me search for this quote. I will translate.
Richie, as you look that up, Mahmoud, Richie, I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
do you think the root cause of that is religious? Is it land-based? Is it history-based that, something like that would occur for you?
Well, no, I think it goes along with the fact of you're talking about going to Lebanon or Mahmoud specifically.
No. You're what you just brought up relating to your passport.
What I want.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, well, basically, none of these countries actually recognize Israel's right to exist. So that's probably the reason they don't let people in. Just before I go, because I actually do have another meeting to go to, nothing to do with the Vonvo, but Jimmy Q's asked a question. I'm not sure where he's from, but he's asked a question: How is it possible for a Westerner to go through to the West Bank? That's a very good question, and I haven't been to Israel for a while, so I can't give an accurate an accurate answer to that. When I lived there, I used to go to the West Bank every other day, and there were never any problems. In fact, the food in East Jerusalem is so delicious. I recommend everybody goes there to eat it. But now I'm not so sure. There, Ramallah and places like that for a Westerner generally are no problem. There's almost no violence at all on the West Bank between Israelis and Palestinians and Arabs there. I myself wouldn't have a problem going to Ramallah, but there are a couple of areas I wouldn't want to go to. I wouldn't want to go to Hebron. I wouldn't want to go to Nablus, but Ramallah and Jericho. I mean, there are lots of Christians who go to Jericho. Bethlehem, obviously, you just had the Christmas celebrations. I didn't hear of any problems with that one. So, but Jimmy, if you haven't been to Israel, then go over. It's an amazing country, and go to Jordan as well because it's a fabulous country too.
Okay. Thank you so much, Richie and Mahmoud, for appearing on Vonvo and sharing your opinions. You both were great. We really appreciate it here, and thank you so much. We hope to have you again because I thought both of you were great.
Okay. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Speak to you soon.